let me start with the saying 10 seconds rule. It means that if someone can fix something on their face or body in 10 seconds, you probably shouldn't mention or say it because they already know and insecure about it. Ask yourself, think, is it kind? Is it necessary? Or is it helpful? Good evening, sir. Good evening, classmates. My name is Eduardo, and in this lesson, I'm gonna teach you a very interesting and important term, political correctness. So, we use this a lot in our culture, alright? So, what is political correctness? It is a pejorative term for the avoidance of language, expressions, or behavior because they can be considered derogatory or discriminating by some groups that are recognized as disadvantaged or marginalized. Well, to be precise, it's avoiding any words or actions that might offend someone. Okay, so that's good, right? It's bad to offend someone because we want to treat people well and we want them to feel respected. This topic is deserved to be studied further in depth for many reasons. The first reason as to why political correctness is worthy of studying is because it in itself has begun to isolate individuals, while the initial intentions of political correctness was to reject derogatory terms in order to make more respect for one another. It has ultimately made society more uncomfortable with people who fit the condition of this politically charged term. In numerous situations, one mistaken word can mean getting severely reprimanded for using a word that is politically incorrect. Of course, everyone is entitled to their opinion. However, opinion can strongly differ and are often completely opposed. So let me teach you some words that you may use as political correctness to avoid offending anyone. First, academic dishonesty instead of cheating. One example of cheating is copying a student during an examination or allowing another to copy your work. But on the other hand, we use the word academic dishonesty to describe these people as they not will be offended somehow. Second, aesthetically challenged instead of ugly. Ugly is distinctly unattractive or unpleasant to the eye, but don't forget the political correctness. So, example, Elora's new boyfriend is a bit aesthetically challenged, but she loves him and I guess that's all that counts. Okay. Third is black instead of negra. Nowadays, the word negra is being rampant word to annoy someone who don't have fair skin. They don't even know that this is kind of racism. So, in order to describe people properly who doesn't have fair skin, we should use the word black rather. And 4. Comfrey instead of bald. Bald is offending term to describe those people who embody these political traits, and that's not good to say. So use the word comfrey instead as we see these people. Fifth, differently abled instead of disabled. In referring people with disabilities, it is preferable to use the word that might offend them. So use differently abled as we encounter any of them. 6. Drug dependent instead of drug addict. When describing people who uses drug, we shouldn't use the word drug addict because they might trigger them and hurt us, so use drug dependent and it much better to the ear. 7. Dysfunctional family instead of broken home. Broken home are the family where the parents are divorced or do not live together, and the children suffer as a result. But the right term to ask a young child is using the phrase, "Do you have a dysfunctional family?" Pero kung hindi naman necessary, we shouldn't ask a child any of these two. 8. Economically marginalized instead of poor. We can define poor as sufficient money to live a standard considered comfortable or normal in a society, but instead of describing people as poor, try this one. People who were economically marginalized to afford a cell phone. 9. Elderly instead of old. Of course, calling someone old is generally not considered polite because the word accurate thought it might be frequently considered pejorative. It's a label that people tend to shy away from, so instead just say, we are ministry that responsibly enhances the life of elderly with Christ-like love. Elderly tend to be the most acceptable terms in use at the moment. 10. Ethically disoriented instead of dishonest. Dishonest is used to describe someone as intentionally deceptive or not fully truthful in some way. But calling people dishonest are below the belt. So try to say those kids are ethically disoriented and in some way this would be preferable. 11. The word deaf in describing someone who is or too offensive because they assume that deaf person cannot communicate. So, intellectually impaired must be better in describing those people with this kind of disability. 12. Informal settler instead of squatter. I'm not sure if you have guys heard the term informal settler. The supposedly politically correct term for squatter. Informal settler is usually someone who moves into abandoned property or open land and takes up residence there without paying rent. 13. Intellectual disability instead of mental retardation. Always try to specify the types of disability being referenced. Otherwise, the term intellectual disability are acceptable term to describe those people who has special ability. 14. Intellectual impaired instead of stupid. Stupid persons involve problem with general mental abilities that affect functioning in two areas, intellectual such as learning and judgment, and adaptive which activities of daily life such as communication, but in order to be politically correct, use the term intellectual impaired. 15. Little person instead of midget. Midget is a term for a person of unusually short stature that is considered by some to be pejorative. Anyway, for those who doesn't know, the midget is an English word for unano. So, this word is too offensive para sabihin sa isang taong may ganitong uri ng kalagayan. On the other hand, use the term little person, the acute word to describe them. 16. Morally challenged instead of crook. A crook is an English word for manluloko. So, this is too offensive to use, right? That's why it has politically correct term which is morally challenged. We can use this term to describe those people who's dishonest as well as to corrupt politician. 17. Non-discretionary fragrance instead of body odor. Non-discretionary fragrance is politically correct euphemism for body odor. For example, I sense the non-discretionary fragrance of someone in front of me. 18. Outdoor urban instead of homeless. A right term that we can use for those individuals who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate native residence such as those living in emergency shelter is outdoor urban. These terms are the best in referring them. 19. People of mass instead of fat. Calling someone fat is improper. I'm pretty sure that the person is perfectly aware of his or her own size and unless they ask for your opinion, just say the word people of mass rather and we should not making comment regarding their size. 20. Rape victim instead of rape rape survivor instead of rape victim. We often use to refer someone who gone through the recovery process or when discussing the story or long-term sexual violence. Some people as a victim while others prefer the term survivor because it's empowerment to convey that a person has started healing process and may have gained a sense peace in their life. 21. Sexually dysfunctional instead of pervert. This means that a person whose sexual behavior is regarded as abnormal and unacceptable despite of being wrong. There's still politically correct term for these people which is sexually dysfunctional. 22. Socially misaligned instead of psychopath. Psychopath is a person having an egocentric and antisocial personality marked by lack of remorse for one's action, an absence of empathy for others, and often criminal tendencies. We can use the term socially misaligned to better describe them. 23. Technologically challenged instead of computer illiterate. They are those who aren't able to use computer well or not understand basic things about computers, but that doesn't mean that we judge them by saying that term. So we better use the word technologically challenged for them. 24. Vertically challenged instead of short. The term short aren't acceptable by people who have this kind of condition. According to my research, the term vertically challenged are one of the terms that we can use and aren't offensive. And lastly, visually impaired instead of blind. Visual impairment is considered the accepted and politically correct term for describing the whole spectrum as vision, or the lack thereof, experienced by people with visual disability. So, as I bring this unit to a close, I want to thank you, Sir Richard, for giving me opportunity to tackle this topic. Hope that this lesson has given you a much clearer understanding about what I have discussed. I hope that we apply what we learned tonight in our lives and keep using political correctness as we talk to other people to avoid making offensive words. Thank you.